So today, what I want to do, today I want to talk about following Jesus. Following Jesus. I thought it would be appropriate to talk about following Jesus because when you get water baptized, right, it's a public declaration saying, Jesus has saved me, he's forgiven me, but I choose to follow Jesus. And that's kind of what water baptism is. A lot of us call ourselves Jesus followers, right? If you're a Christian, if you're a disciple of Jesus, you're a Jesus follower. Now, we could get super confused with this lingo, right? Because you go on like Instagram or TikTok and you see all these so-called followers. But that's something totally different, right? Because if you're following someone on social media, there's no commitment. There's hardly any, if any, relationship. You can listen to them, not listen to them, no one will know. You could unfollow them anytime. Right? Social media following is totally different than when you follow Jesus. When you're following Jesus, there's a committed relationship. There's something going on saying, I'm choosing to live, to talk, to act, to behave like Jesus did. And that's what I want to talk about today is following Jesus. What's required of me if I call myself a Jesus follower? What's required of me? And so what I've done was today, I'm going to tell you everything my message is about ahead of time, and I boil it down into one sentence. This whole message is about this one statement. It's kind of answering this question, what's required of me if I want to follow Jesus? As a follower of Jesus, what do I do? And it's this simple. It's I go with Jesus and I behave like Jesus. I go where Jesus is going and I behave like Jesus would behave in that situation. I go with Jesus and I behave like Jesus. Now, I feel very blessed as a father because my kids love me. And I just love it. I come home. They can't wait for me to come home. They hate when I leave without them. They always want to be with me. They follow me wherever I go. Right? So we only have one TV in our house, okay? And so if I want to watch TV, I kind of devise this plan. What I'll do is I'll get the kids set up in another room, and I'll be playing with them and slowly play less and less so they're playing on their own. And then I go into the other room to watch TV, and it's like some sort of internal alarm goes off in their head. Bling, 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 Daddy's not here. And they come running with their toys, with their noise, with their questions, and I can't watch TV. I can only really watch TV if they're sleeping or it's Coco Melon, right? Seriously. And it's tough, but I love it. But my point is my kids follow me wherever I go. Honest to God truth, if I go outside for 1 minute to grab something from my car, you know what I'm talking about? Like you don't even put shoes on. You just run outside real quick, run back. I come back and my daughter Faith is in tears because I left without her. They follow me wherever I go. And do you know what question they ask me all the time? All the time they ask me the same question. Daddy, where are you going? Where are you going? If I put shoes on, Daddy, where are you going? If I put clothes on, Daddy, where are you going? If I open a door, Daddy, where are you going? Just the other night, I left my sandals on, and my daughter's like, Daddy, why do you have those on? Where are you going? Right? If they get a whiff of maybe me leaving in the future, they ask, Daddy, where are you going? If they're going with my wife somewhere without me, they ask me, Daddy, where are you going? All the time, they ask me, where are you going? And I find it so interesting that so many of us call ourselves Jesus followers, yet we never ask the question, where is Jesus going? I mean, don't you think if we made a lifelong commitment to follow someone, we should ask, where is he going? Shouldn't we be a little curious on where is Jesus going? Because the truth is what? When you follow someone, you always end up at their destination. Do you remember before we had GPSs in our phones and in our cars, what it was like going somewhere you didn't know how to get? Right? If you were going somewhere and your buddies were going somewhere, they knew how to get there and they were in a separate car. What did you do? You followed that car. Remember when you used to have to follow people? Right? Now you just throw it in your phone. I don't care where you go. How did you get here? I don't know. Whatever my phone said, that's how I got here. But back then, you had to follow someone, right? And what did you do? They turned right, you turned right. They turned left, you turned left. They got on the highway, you got on the highway. They merged left, you merged left, right? They missed the turn, you missed the turn. They had to pull in someone's driveway, pull out and get the right turn. You had to pull in someone's driveway, get out and get the right turn. Why? Because you knew if you followed them long enough, you would get to the same destination as them. And if you're following Jesus, we should be getting to the same destination. We should be going to the same place that Jesus is going. Mark 8:34 says this, then Jesus called the crowd to him along with his disciples, and he said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and believe in me. If you want to be my disciple, you believe in me. Okay, I lied to you guys. I actually wrote that wrong on purpose to trick everybody. It actually doesn't say believe in me. Don't put the next one up yet. Oh, don't put it up. It doesn't say believe in me, right? I lied. The reason I did that is because doesn't it feel right? I'm just being honest, right? It feels like Jesus said, if you want to be my disciple, believe in me. But what does he say in the next slide? He says, if you want to be my disciple, that's what we're talking about, being a disciple of Jesus, you deny yourselves, you take up your cross, and you follow me. We often read that verse as if it's to be Jesus' disciple. All that's required is believing in him. But Jesus said, if you want to be my disciple, it's not just believing, it's following me. As a Christian, we pick up our cross. We deny ourselves, but we follow Jesus. Here's the problem with all this, is our belief should not become a substitute for our behavior. A lot of us, we believe in Jesus, but we don't behave the way Jesus behaved. And then we have the audacity to get mad at non-Christians for not wanting to be a Christian because they don't understand why Jesus followers don't act the way of the one we've sworn to follow. Right? They get confused. Why don't people believe in Jesus? Well, because you act nothing like Jesus. You just keep telling them what you believe. Maybe we should behave the way Jesus behaved. But somehow in American Christianity, we've gotten this confused that belief is an okay substitute for our behavior. If I posted enough on Facebook, it's okay. I don't have to act that way. I could just tell people what I believe. When we choose to follow Jesus, we're not just believing in him. We're going where he goes, and we're behaving like he behaves. Sadly, for many of us, and many times in my life, I'm preaching to myself. This is like I'm reevaluating how I live my life through this message. We believe in Jesus. We've accepted him in our heart. We're forgiven. We're going for heaven. And then we kind of stop there. But maybe we're supposed to behave like Jesus. Matthew 4:18, this is a great verse. What's happening here is Jesus is calling his very first disciples. We're disciples of Jesus. Jesus is calling his disciples. This is the language Jesus uses when he calls his disciples, the people who believe in him. It says this, one day Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee. He saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fish for a living. Jesus called out to them, come, follow me. He didn't say believe in me. He said, come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. And they left their nets at once and followed him. They didn't just believe, they followed. Next verse 21. A little farther up the shore, he saw two other brothers, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, repairing their nets. He called to them too. They immediately followed him, leaving their boat and their father behind. What did Jesus ask his first four disciples to do? To follow him. In the Greek, that literally means to come behind me, to walk behind me, to follow me as I walk. It was actually exactly what rabbis, teachers, would do back then. They would ask their disciples to follow them. Why? So they could kind of absorb their teachings and understand what they're doing and learn what the rabbi, the teacher, is teaching. And Jesus called his disciples to follow him, to get behind him, to learn his teachings and his ways. But not just to learn his teachings, but to one day be an active participant in what he's doing. They didn't want to just learn what Jesus taught. They wanted to learn how to behave and act and interact with other people the way Jesus behaved. What did the disciples do? They followed Jesus. And over the next 3 years, even when they don't understand, you should read the gospel with this mindset. That when the disciples didn't understand, they didn't like it, they disagreed, what did they do? They just kept following Jesus. Jesus went to Jerusalem, he went to Jerusalem, they went to Jerusalem. Jesus went to Caesarea Philippi, they went to Caesarea Philippi. Jesus went to Zacchaeus' house, the man nobody liked, the disciples didn't want to go there. Jesus went, they still went anywhere. They wanted to do this, Jesus said, no, we act this way. They did what Jesus said. They followed Jesus. But the purpose of them following Jesus wasn't just so they learn, but also so one day participate and behave like Jesus. Why? To be fishers of man. That's an interesting statement. Jesus wanted to make them fishers of man or fishers of people. Jesus was talking to fishermen, so he was speaking their language. I love how Jesus spoke to people in a way they could understand and they could relate to. One of the things I try to do when I speak on my messages is to speak in a way that everyone could understand, whether you're churched, unchurched, whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian, wherever you are in life, I try to use examples and speak in ways that everyone could understand. I often have to look up these big theological words that I don't understand and study them so I could present it in a way we could all understand, and that's helpful. But it's not just in our language, right? Everything we do here, we try to do something similar to Jesus. The music, the sound, the lights, the way you feel when you walk in, how you're greeted with people. What are we trying to do? We're trying to do what Jesus did, presenting God's truth in a way that everyone will understand. We want to present who Jesus is in a way that's easy and helpful for people to understand. When Jesus was with fishermen, he talked like fishermen talk. Maybe he didn't swear as much, but I'm just saying. When he was with farmers, right, he used farmer lingo. When he was with the religious, right, he used religious languages. Jesus helped relate to people while still remaining the truth of who he was. It's interesting. There's a story after Jesus died, rose from the grave, ascended into heaven. The apostles are preaching the gospel of Jesus, and the early church is growing and growing and growing. All these Jews are coming to know Jesus, and then all of a sudden something else happens. Gentiles, non-Jewish people, they start to accept Jesus. Now, these are totally different people, right? They had different diets. They had different ways of worshiping. They voted different politically, right? They didn't believe what the Jews believed, and yet they're Christians. And so the church had this meeting, like, we don't know what to do. There's people who don't believe what we believe, who are believing in Jesus. What do we do? And the brother of Jesus, James, he stands up and he says, listen, they could believe in Jesus long as they all vote for the same political party. He didn't say that. He said, well, they could believe in Jesus. Let's just agree on if we're going to wear masks or be vaccinated. Then they could. He didn't say that. This is what James said, the brother of Jesus, when people who weren't like Jews were coming to Christ, he said, Acts 15:19, and so my judgment is that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. Next slide, Acts 15:19, and so my judgment is that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. That's what we're trying to do. I think you go back a slide. I don't know where we are now. Acts 15:19. It was on there. I'm just going to preach. Let's not make it difficult for people who are turning to God. So what? They don't believe what we believe. They're turning to Jesus. It's our job to reach people. That's what we're trying to do in our church, and that's what Jesus did on his earthly ministry. And we are followers of Jesus. We will do what Jesus did. He's with fishermen. He's talking about fishermen lingo. I'll make you a fisher of people. When you go fishing for fish, what do? You got to go where the fish are, right? You can't get fish on your couch. I remember when I was a little boy, I used to go fishing with my grandpa all the time, and we'd go on a boat, and sometimes we drive for 10 minutes, sometimes we drive closer to an hour. What were we doing? We were driving to find where the fish were. They have those little fish radar, and it tells you where the fish are. And we drive to, you got to go where the fish are. That's what Jesus does. He was going where the fish are. But once you get there, there's more to do than just sitting there. You got to learn how to fish, have the right equipment, learn the right techniques. And that's what Jesus was saying to his disciples. Follow me, I'll make you a fisher of man. I'll help you catch people, to know people who don't know me, who are suffering, who are hurting. I'm going to take you where those people are. We can't reach non-Christians by only hanging out with Christians. And I'm going to teach you how to go where they are, and then teach you what to say, what to do, and I'm going to teach you how to behave, to reach people who are far from me. Come, follow me. A Jesus follower doesn't just believe in Jesus, they behave like Jesus, and they go where Jesus went. Which brings me to a question I kind of asked you at the beginning. If we're Jesus followers, shouldn't we know where Jesus is going? Well, there's a chapter in Luke that really is clear on where Jesus is going. Jesus says something really interesting in Luke chapter 15. What he does is he tells 3 parables in a row. 3 parables. They're short stories that prove a point. 3 parables, 3 stories that prove a point. Sometimes in the Gospels, if you read them, Jesus will tell 1 parable. On a rare occasion, he'll tell 2 in a row. But the only time in the Gospels is right here where he shares back to back to back stories showing a point, showing where he is going. He did it so clearly that we could not question where Jesus' focus is. The 3 stories are the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. I'm going to read the first 2 to you and summarize the third one, the lost son, the prodigal son, because it's a little long. The first parable is this. Luke chapter 15, verse 3 says this. So Jesus told them this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. In verse 6, when he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. That was the lost coin, or the lost sheep. The next story, the next verse, verse 8, is the lost coin. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she will call in her friends and neighbors and say, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost coin. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels, even when one sinner repents. And then the third story is the story of the lost son. You might know it as the prodigal son. I'll just tell it to you. What happened, there was a father with 2 sons. The older son did everything the father asked. The younger son wanted to leave. He didn't want anything to do with him. He asked for his inheritance. The dad gives him his inheritance. The son leaves, spends all his money partying, drinking, prostitutes, wake up one day broke and alone. Has to get a job. Tries to get a job. Can't get a job. It's a famine. Only job he could get, feeding pigs. So hungry, so deprived, he one day thinks of dreaming of eating this pig food, and he comes to his senses, and he says, I got to go back home. I'm not worthy to be a son, but I'll serve. I'll be a servant. So he heads home, and the father sees him from a distance. He was longing for him, waiting for him to come home, and he runs out and greets him and brings him home and welcomes him home. 3 stories Jesus tells us back to back to back, all illustrating the same point of where Jesus is going. In fact, all these stories have a lot of things in common. The first thing to know is this: all these stories have someone or something that's in the wrong place. Something or someone that's in the wrong place. All these stories have something or someone that's in the right place, and they all have someone who represents God, okay? So let's look at the first story. The first story is this, the lost sheep, right? Who represents God in the story? It's the shepherd. The shepherd represents God, and the sheep is in the wrong place. Who's in the right place? The 99 sheep were in the right place. Go to the next story. Who represents God? The woman. Who is in the wrong place? The 1 coin. Who's in the right place, or what was in the right place? The 9 coins. Now, if you go to the last story, who represents God? It's the father. The father in the story represented God. And the younger son was in the wrong place, and the older son, he was in the right place. And now I want you to think for a minute. You look at that and you think, okay, so what is Jesus telling us? Well, in each story, look at the first story, the shepherd. Where was the shepherd's focus? Where did he go? He went to the 1 sheep, the one in the wrong place. Look at the next story. Where was the woman? What was her focus? She was cleaning the house, sweeping the house, looking for the 1 coin, the one that was in the wrong place. And lastly, if you read the story of the prodigal son, you know the father's heart, his affection was waiting for his son to come home, and his attention was to the younger son, the one in the wrong place. So what does this tell us? Where is Jesus going? He's going to the lost. Jesus' special focus is on those who don't know him. Now, does that mean we neglect all the Christians? No, that's not true. We're called to follow Jesus. We have a huge role to play. We're called to disciple each other, mature each other. Look at the beautiful community we have and the help we provide each other. But the truth is, if we're following Jesus, we should be going where Jesus goes. Let me illustrate it another way in Jesus' ministry on earth. The very beginning of his ministry, from the time he called his first disciples, what did he do? He called them, we read the verse earlier, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. From the very beginning, I'll do it over here. From the very beginning, he was helping people fish for people, right? He was trying to find those who were lost. In the middle of his ministry, we just read in Luke chapter 15, he told us he's going to the lost, right? The lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son. At the very end of his ministry, the last thing he said before he ascended into heaven was the Great Commission. And it said this in Matthew 28:19, therefore, go and make disciples. His whole ministry was going towards that which is lost. Where is Jesus going? To the lost. To those who don't know him yet. And what are Jesus' followers supposed to do? I go with Jesus and I behave like Jesus. Jesus is walking on the beach and he turns to the 99. That's us. We're the 99. If you believe in Jesus, you're the 99. And he says to you, follow me. He turns to the 9 coins. That's us. If you're a Jesus follower, we're one of the 9 coins. He says, follow me. And I'm going to take you to people who don't know me. See, some of us, we just follow Jesus to church. That's good. I'm glad you come to church. But that's not all of it. Don't just follow Jesus to church. Don't just follow Jesus at home. Don't just follow Jesus when it makes sense. Don't just follow Jesus when it's convenient. Don't just follow Jesus when you feel like it. We follow Jesus everywhere. And when we do that, we'll eventually begin to reaching those who don't know him. What's the big idea of our message? I go with Jesus and I behave like Jesus. We know where Jesus is going, to the lost. But how do we behave like Jesus? Truthfully, you could probably do, a whole series, a whole year speaking on behaving like Jesus? But for me recently, this is just personally has spoken to me so much that I feel like I even need to repent in some ways of how to behave like Jesus. I want to read one story of how we should behave like Jesus. It's found in John chapter 13. Jesus is getting ready to be crucified. And it says this, John chapter 13, verse 1. Before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and to return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Now, I want you to think of this verse. It says, Jesus loved his disciples to the very end, knowing that one of them was going to betray him and cause him the most pain you could ever physically imagine in our lives. On top of that, he knew they were all going to desert him when he needed them. But he loved them still. Verse 3. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything and that he had come from God and would return to God. Now, this is mind-blowing. Jesus loved his disciples even though they were going to mistreat, one was going to betray him. And Jesus had all the authority. He had all the power. He was in charge. He could do whatever he wanted. And how would you respond in that moment, knowing your best friend was going to backstab you and you were the boss? You would have stood up at that table and told him like it was. You would have said, this injustice will not happen. You will not use me. You will not abuse me. You will not take advantage of me. That is not going to happen. But we're not called to act like we want to act. Jesus modeled to us how we behave as Christians. Verse 4 said this, so he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with a towel hid around him. What? This is nonsense. This doesn't make sense. This isn't how Christians in America are supposed to act. The people he loved were taking advantage of him. Jesus had all the power. And instead of Jesus standing up in power and telling them how to believe, he got down in humility and he showed us how to behave. Please, hear my heart. I'm talking to myself. Too many Christians, we're looking for battles to fight. We're looking for arguments to win. Try to prove our point. Try to convince people we're right. Even if you do win the argument, you've lost. Because you pushed them away from Jesus. We're not trying to build an earthly kingdom. We're trying to build a heavenly kingdom. God is our king. Jesus is our king. This is just the honest truth. Other people don't care what we believe. They care how we behave. But somehow in America, the Christians, we just want to tell people how to believe. We could care less how we behave. No wonder nobody wants to serve Jesus. Maybe it's time we act like real Jesus followers. And we behave like Jesus taught us to behave. Maybe instead of looking for an argument to win, we look for some feet to wash. Okay, that sounds good, Jonathan, but what if they voted for the other political party? Well, in that case, I'm going to tell you what to do. You behave like Jesus behaved. But what if they're not pro-life? What if they're not this? What if you behave like Jesus behaved? If you're a Jesus follower, there's no out. You don't have another option. He was clear. We follow him. They don't care what you believe. They care how you behave. And we got a lot of work to do because we've been behaving pretty bad. There's some apologies some of us need to give. There's some posts maybe you could delete because we behave like Jesus behaved. Let's stop looking for battles and arguments to fight. Let's start looking for feet to wash. There's a greater thing at stake here. And it's the lives and souls of people for eternity. It's a greater kingdom. We serve a greater king. Let's not push people away by a belief we have. Let's pull people in by the behaviors we act, the way we act. What I want to do is get ready to take communion. I believe communion will be a time for a lot of us, myself in particular, of reevaluating what it means to be a Jesus follower in my life. If you don't have the communion, it's like a little wafer and juice. If you don't have this, you can just slip up your hand. We have some great hosts who would give it to you. Just raise them nice and high. They'll all get you. They're all over the place. If you're at home, you could grab something to take communion with us. I want you to enjoy it, to take this time with us in a moment of maybe for some people repentance, maybe for others just a reevaluation of, am I a follower of Jesus? Because you take communion the easiest way. I push it down and the little clear flap pops up and you can take out this wafer. Jesus was taking communion with his disciples. And it says the bread, which is this wafer, it resembles the body of Christ, which was broken for us on the cross. This juice resembles the blood of Jesus that was shed for us on the cross. I think about this. Jesus' last act before he died was showing us how to behave. Think about the injustice. We're all about injustice. Jesus was falsely accused. People made up lies. And do you know how he defended himself? He didn't. They hurt him. They beat him. They spit on him. They made fun of him. Do you know how he defended himself? He didn't. Why? So we could be forgiven. And I was thinking, when I was thinking about communion, I wonder if I could extend that grace to somebody else. To one day they could be forgiven. I wonder if I could Jonathan, just keep your mouth shut and just serve them. Just love them. And maybe one day they'll come to know Jesus and they could experience the same forgiveness we have. Jesus showed us how to behave. I'm not trying to be mean or pick on people, but the truth is we have a Savior we follow, and he demonstrated us with communion. So what I'm going to do is get ready to take communion. When we take this, just if you want to, reevaluate. Look what Jesus went through for us. His body was broken and shed so we could be forgiven. What if some of us just lay down some of our arguments? I don't understand it. You're right. I don't have an answer for you. I don't get it. But I know who we're supposed to behave like. It's Jesus. And maybe as we take communion, there's a time where we say maybe there's some feet we need to look to wash. That maybe one day they get to experience the forgiveness of Jesus. Let's just take the bread together. Let's take the juice, and I'm just going to spend a moment praying for us. Lord Jesus, we thank you that you are our King. We serve a King, and it's Jesus. Lord, thank you that you behaved in a specific way that many would come to know you and be forgiven. And you've called us to follow you. Lord, forgive me personally for thinking a belief I have is more important than behaving like the one I've sworn to follow, Jesus. Lord, I ask that you soften our hearts, that every time we look for an argument, every time we get angry, every time, whatever it is for you, a post or a reaction to somebody at work, whatever it may be, we would have this reminder of communion of what Jesus has done for us. And maybe instead of standing up in power, telling people what we believe, we begin to get down in humility and wash some feet and behave like Jesus behaved. Lord, forgive us. Because there's something better at stake. More important than who wins the election. More important than a piece of cloth on our faith. It's eternity. It's people knowing Jesus. It's a greater kingdom. If you're a Jesus follower, we serve the greatest kingdom, and it's not of this world. It's his kingdom. And Lord, help us to keep our eyes on your prize, that we could reach as many as possible for you. Lord, I know we will reach. I know it. We're going to reach thousands of people to Western New York. But it's not going to be because I preach good. It's not going to be because our worship's awesome. It's going to be how a bunch of Jesus followers decide to behave like Jesus. And many are going to come to Christ. Lord, I thank you for other churches who are in this together. We always pray for other churches because it's just not about Lovejoy. It's about God's kingdom advancing in Western New York. And I pray for these other churches. I lift them up in Western New York. And I thank you for them, Lord. I thank you for Hamburg Assembly of God and Amherst Baptist Church. Lord, I think that your hand is upon these churches and that you too will help them to behave, to act like Jesus, to reach thousands, to join us in our mission, to reach as many as possible that some would know who you are. Help us, God. Pray a blessing over those churches. In Jesus' name we pray.